I am Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker and the host of this Halt and Catch Fire rewatch podcast. Now, when I speak, my topic is something I call Take the Doughnut, which for me is another way to say carpe diem. It's all about going after the things that you want in life. So what I wanted to do this year was to do a Halt and Catch Fire rewatch, and this time actually talk about it with other people. And this has been such a blast. And we're up leveling that because now I'm getting a chance to talk with people who actually worked on the show. And before I introduce my guest for today, a quick housekeeping item that might not be necessary for this one, but if you are brand new to the show, the episode recaps are spoiler-free and safe for you up until the episode you are on in the coverage. If, however, so spoiler-free for the episode recaps. If you don't want spoilers, this might not be the place to be. Interviews can cover anything from any season. Again, that might not be an issue for this one for all of you, but just wanted you to be aware because today we're talking with William Sims, who is a coder on seasons 1 and 2. Welcome, William.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad we could finally make this happen.
Yes, and before we get into any questions, I think an acknowledgement is required here because right out of the gate, when I started doing the episode recaps, there wasn't a thought in my head about doing interviews. And William reached out and said, do you want to do interviews? Do you think maybe that's the thing you want to do? And I said, yeah, that sounds really good. And so we've created a monster. I mean, this has been amazing.
It's a cool monster. I like it.
Yeah, it's been awesome, and furthermore, William's helped with a lot of introductions as well. So, I mean, everybody who's listening to this, please say thank you, William. You could say so in the comments. That would be lovely.
Oh, shucks, yeah. It's fine.
But I'm very excited to be able to talk with you. And I guess the way to start with this is to say, what was your process for getting connected with this show to begin with? How did you get onto Halt and Catch Fire?
Gotcha. Yeah, that was my wife and I, our first, I guess, attempt to get into the industry. My wife, who you've actually interviewed a few weeks ago, and she's so embarrassed. She forgot to say, she kept talking about this random William guy and I don't think she ever actually said, or you actually said that I'm her husband. She was just talking about William. So that was fun.
And your wife being Victoria.
Yeah, never mentioned
Who's your wife?
Oh, what?
She's saying, who's your wife?
Oh, my wife is actually here. So Victoria Donches, the interview a couple of weeks ago, is my wife. So anyway, now that that's done, my wife had actually updated her headshots and resumes and put on all the Facebook groups and stuff. That was, I guess, a growing thing at the time that we're talking 2013. And so she had updated all of her information with some casting agencies that were now having like building private groups on Facebook. And so out of that, she got booked right away on The Walking Dead. And I was like, I mean, at the time, like we were like, clear your calendar, shut down the day on Sunday night, like we're watching The Walking Dead. So I was like, well, dang, I want to be on The Walking Dead. So I got a headshot. I put my size cards in and stuff on the same extras cast. It was called Extras Casting Atlanta at the time. I think they're still around. But I put my stuff on there. And I had the long curly hair or whatever, and I guess I had a vibe because they made a post is what it was. And it was this a show set in the 80s. And, I'm from the 80s and I liked it. I spent most of my time like trying to learn how to walk and use the bathroom and stuff like in the 80s. Not really a lot of fun stuff like coding or whatever, but I was like always a fan, love the era. And I was like, I'll do this show from the 80s. What is this? And so they saw my pictures and stuff and they're like, God, absolutely. Like, come on, let's get you in. So I went to the first, like they call it a fitting, where you come in and like they make sure their wardrobe samples and stuff fit you and everything. And so I walked in and they actually also said, bring anything that you think would work. So, I mean, I brought a duffel bag full of my clothes and it was so hilarious. There was a girl named Devin who was my costumer. She was one of like 7 that was like kind of outfitting everybody. And I pulled out my clothes and she's like, "Oh my God, this is great." And so like everything I pulled out, she's like, "This is great too. This is great too." And all the other people that were walking by that were doing her job on other people, they were like, "Devin, where you keep getting all this stuff?" They thought Devin had like stolen all the good clothes, and she's like, "No, he brought that with him," you know. And so like it was hilarious. Like my first like 4 episodes on *Halt and Catch Fire*, I was wearing my own clothes. Um, which made everybody else jealous until they realized that they were my clothes, you know, like everybody else, I mean the costumers, because they were like, "I missed that from my person," or whatever. And like, no, he brought that with him, you know. So anyway, I guess I came with a vibe, I came with the haircut, I came with my own clothes, and they were like, "Of course, this guy has to go on." So I was actually on the pilot. It was actually a pilot reshoot. They had done the pilot to get the project, I guess, greenlit is what they call it. But once it was greenlit, I guess I don't know if they changed out an actor or two or whatever, but they had to reshoot the pilot as episode 1. And so that's where I came on as the pilot reshoot. And that was December of 2013. And then I guess maybe it had to go through another process of another version of a green light or something. Because it wasn't I mean, I didn't think anything else about it. I was like, well, it's a pilot, you know, whatever. It may work, it may not. I mean, that's how this business works. And so, I mean, about 2.5 months went by, and it was late February of 2014. Or maybe late January. I don't know. It was a long enough time where I thought it got canned. You know, I was like, I don't know what's going on. And so I saw a similar post like, "Hey, we need people from the '80s, you know, to be on the show." And I was like, "Well, I've already done that. So let me remind them I exist, I suppose." You have to do a lot of that in this business as well, just reminding people that you're around. Um, and so yeah, they were like, "Oh my God, of course. Yeah, like we remember you from the thing and you were in the bar, like in the arcade. Yeah, of course you're coming back." So like they brought me back in, and it was at that point that I think there was only one guy that was supposed to work at Cardiff Electric. It wasn't Mutiny at the time. So season 1 is all about Cardiff Electric. So we were just like people that worked in the bullpen, like in the cubicles in Cardiff Electric. There was like one person that I met on the pilot, and then like a whole group of other people. So those guys became like pre-Mutiny, like we were the Cardiff Electric engineers, I guess. I don't know. I'm talking a lot, so jump in if you
No,
need.
this is so cool. So because I was trying to figure out how early were you actually on the show.
Yeah.
I went and I think I spotted you in episode 5 of season 1, which was Adventure.
Okay.
I didn't go earlier than that, but you were in like the saloon where Cameron was playing Caterpillar.
In the
pilot?
arcade, yeah, like where they go in the back and do their thing or whatever.
Sure
Like
do.
I was there, yeah.
Oh my gosh. So you were there from the very beginning.
Well,
That's
the second
amazing.
beginning, but yeah.
The second beginning.
Sure. But yeah, I was in that. And then about I'd say the next, or maybe not the next, but probably after the pilot, I think is there 10 episodes in season 1?
Yes. Mhm.
I was probably in another 6.
Okay. Wow.
But the way Cardiff Electric was, I mean, it was that room. I mean, it was a full, like if you spent the day in like that area, you forget that you're on a soundstage, because like that room looked like, you know, like the 12th floor of some executive building, you know what I mean? And it was big. And so the action, it was big action, you know? And so if like Bosworth's office or like everybody's office that was on the perimeter, you know, like the corner offices and the windows and all that stuff, we were just out in the area, which was as big as you would expect it to be. So like it's easy to get lost in there. So like I can find me, but I know where I was. You know what I mean? So like I
That's
know
the thing about the Mutiny House. It was smaller, it was tighter quarters. And so you could absolutely make out every single person who's in there and what they're doing at any
there's
given
no hiding in
moment.
the Mutiny House at all.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. So you're in you're in episodes across both seasons. So for you, what were some of the differences between those seasons? And you can answer that kind of any way that it strikes you.
Gotcha. I mean, as far as like, I mean, being an extra, there's a lot of time not in the scenes, you know, so like it's a lot of hanging out behind the stage or like outside or, um, at Crafty, craft services, like getting snacks or whatever. Like so like as far as the hangout time, it was exactly the same. Like a lot of the people from season one made it over into season two, but for by and large, like a couple of faces switched out, but the vibe offset was the same. The vibe on set um was profoundly different actually, because it's smaller, like the people making the decisions about the show, like Video Village was right there, like all the ADs, all the director, all the producers, like everybody that had an opinion on what was about to happen, like was in earshot of you in season two. So like we knew a lot more about what the plot was, we knew a lot more about everything, just if nothing else because of proximity. I mean, because like I said, like it was actually the Mutiny House stage was the same stage as Cardiff Electric. They had like bulldozed Cardiff Electric. So like as far as like location inside the soundstage, it was exactly the same thing. But it was like they built a house in the middle of where the cubicles used to be, So hilarious. Like it's so cool. Like the movie business is something else. And I do it all the time, but every time it's there's something special about every time. But yeah, I mean that was the vibe. It's like we had more information the second time around, and like I remember thinking, I told this to everybody. Like they're like, "Hey, what are you working on?" And I said, "It's a show called Halt and Catch Fire. I'm sure that's a working title because it's a stupid name. Like it's so long and it doesn't make sense, and nobody knows coding language from back then, like." And so I was like, because like my wife works on a lot of like Marvel movies, and Marvel movies especially have like code names. And so like because they don't want the general public to be like, oh my God, Ant-Man's at Trilith this week, or like whatever, and like all of a sudden like you have the mob like an Elvis concert or something like outside the soundstage. Um, so I assumed that Halt and Catch Fire was a working title. And like when we got in there, I was like, certainly they're gonna name it something else. Certainly they are. And like I remember the whole first season, like on set thinking like, I don't know what the show's actually called, or whatever. And then like, my God, like AMC started like promoting Halt and Catch Fire. I was like, well, I guess it stuck. So, so if nothing else, by the time season two happened, I was like, well, I guess we're shooting Halt and Catch Fire season two, And by that time, it was full steam ahead, and we all knew everything about what was happening.
Yeah. So, okay, now you got all this information, but the role that you're in, you're doing background work. And so what's for me, something that seems different between season one and season two is that when you're in the background, you're in the foreground, like
Yeah.
it has to be, the house has to feel very full, has to feel alive, but you also can't really distract from like the dialogue that we're meant to be hearing. So for you, what makes a good background actor? What does it mean to do a good performance?
Well, I mean, you kind of hinted at it, like in season two, especially, like the only difference between me and like Cooper's character or Josh's character or any of them, the only difference as far as you're concerned is they speak and I don't, right? So like their actions had to be spot on because I mean you were looking at them, right? My actions had to be spot on because you weren't looking at me, but had I been doing something ridiculous right next to them, then it blows the whole gag. Like it blows the whole show. So like in all of the prep work leading up to it, like they would be like, okay, this is a machine that does this, you do this with it. And we would be getting taught that, at the same time that like Josh Hoover was or Cooper or any of those people, like because we're all the same. They spoke, we didn't, but we were all the same. So I mean, it wasn't what makes a good background. It was we were acting like we were the show as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, it absolutely does. I mean, it has to be believable. We have to believe that you guys are doing the job that you're supposed to be doing. So
in fact, there's actually a funny story about that. Speaking of that, there was this one, it was like a keypad, like some sort of auxiliary, like number crunching, like keypad thing. And like there was this one time I actually got in trouble on set because I grabbed it like you would hold an iPhone. Like I have my iPhone right here. I'm holding it like this, punching in the numbers like this. And all of a sudden they cut the take. And I remember the AD comes in. He's like, who's got their phone in here? He's like yelling. And he found me. He's like, what are you doing? And I held up the actual, like, it's a 1980s era, like handheld keypad. And he's like, yeah, we're not going to hold it like that. I was like, but I'm sure that's how it was. He's like, but everybody in Village thought that you had your iPhone in the scene in 1985, you know? And I'm like, well, that's fair. And so we put it on the table and I was just like pecking at it like it's the rest of the day. Like
I mean, it was the day of rotary phones. Like, it wasn't always what you think it would be now.
Yeah. Who's got their phone? William, what are you doing? Like, it's this is yours. I don't know what to tell you.
Like that you literally provided this. This
Yeah,
is a
this
prop.
is my prop that was sitting here when I got here, boss. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Oh gosh, that's amazing. Well, okay, so on that subject, look, Cardiff Electric didn't have a lot of bells and whistles around the office necessarily.
No.
Mutiny House did. So, you know, when you walked on set, were there any things from the 80s that felt like a real blast from the past for you? Anything that you admired as you were on set?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, there was several Ataris around. And I mean, I grew up long after the Ataris. I mean, I was born in 86, but like I was in South Georgia on a farm. So like we didn't have a lot of technology back then. So like I got an Atari like 15 years after they were popular, like in the mid 90s, right? But that's still what I grew up on as if it was 15 years previous. And so like some of the guys, like we'd be sitting around in like the living room, I think is where one of the Ataris was, and they'd be like, what is Dig Dug? You know, or whatever, you know, like they'd find the games and I'm like, oh man, this is awesome game. And so I was almost like a prop master in a manner of speaking, because like I was the one like telling my other people, like obviously not when we're rolling and stuff, but like I was the one like showing people around as what was what, like in regard especially to like the Atari and stuff. So other than that, in the hallway of the Mutiny House, there was like a lot of concert tickets. So like it was always cool to see like how much concerts were like in 1982 or whatever, you know, like so there would be like a Bruce Springsteen at like the Forum or you know something like that, and like it'd be like $6. It was ridiculous, you know, like those type of things. There was like it was like wallpaper, like down like I guess the hallway, like the wall that separates the dining room from the hall, like the shared wall between the dining room and the wall. I mean, it was wallpapered with period correct concert tickets, and that was really fun.
I haven't even, I'm gonna have to freeze the frame next time.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the inside of the Mutiny House. I've never even noticed that.
It was I think it's like right behind a rack full of like old IT gear and stuff. So you may just brush right past it. Like they didn't film a lot in that hall because I mean that was the tightest spot in the house, you know, so it's hard.
But they get in there sometimes though.
Yeah, they do. They do. But they didn't live there a lot.
Yeah. Cool. That's a fun detail.
Check for that. That was cool. It's in fact, I don't know if you have a spot to get into this later, so I'll just tell you now, speaking of that. To speak to the weird time and place that Halt and Catch Fire was in my life. Like I feel like a lot of people that I was connected with or that I would soon become connected with were also connected with Halt and Catch Fire. Like the Mutiny House, the stage version, the season 2 Mutiny House. The guy that they had dressed the house, like that's all period correct IT stuff. A guy that was connected to the office job that I had at the time. I knew him from there. And I remember one day at lunch, like it was probably, we were on like episode 3 or 4. And I see this guy named Lloyd. I was like, Lloyd, what are you doing here? And because I mean, there was no reason in the world in my mind why he should have been there. You know, I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, all the IT stuff is mine. As it turns out, he lives in this community in Snellville, and he was an IT person in the 80s. And I guess like his business shut down, or like I don't remember exactly why he still had everything, but like he had a barn full of that stuff. And I guess somebody put out a call that knew somebody that knew somebody that found him. And it was his job on Halt and Catch Fire to bring in all the garbage that had been collecting dust in his barn for like, I don't know, what is that, like 25, 30 years, something like that. And to bring it in and to set it up as if it was working and like show everybody. And he was actually like, you know, you have like dialogue coaches and like acting coaches, things like that, he would actually step in sometimes. Like sometimes you'd catch him at monitor and stuff, and like on some of the more technical things, like if somebody was like manipulating a device a certain way, he'd be like, "That's not how we did that," you know. And so he would like step in and be like, "Hey guys, this is actually the way you do it." And so like, and in my mind, there was no reason he should have been there, except lo and behold, he was like that guy. Like he was me 30 years ago.
He
You know
was
what I
the guy who hoarded stuff. Like it's a lesson for us all. Hoard more things.
Yeah, you know, they tell you with fashion, you know, like it comes back around every decade or so, you know, like maybe IT stuff does too, or maybe today's gear is tomorrow's props, or I don't know. But yeah, he was the guy. And so he was there as much as I was. Like, in fact, he was more than I was because he was there all the time, you know, telling them how to do things, which was it was a really neat thing. So like it was just amazing thinking back, like how Halt and Catch Fire really did bring a lot of random people together, you know, to because I mean, a lot of people lived through that era, I guess, maybe. Like it was just I mean, not obviously a lot of people did, but like all walks of life have to come together to recreate the 80s, I suppose, you know? So like it was neat how like someone who never probably thought he would be in the movie business was all of a sudden in the movie business. So
Halt and Catch Fire was the thing that got you all to the thing, huh? That's how it worked.
oh, the other thing, sorry. I have my coach in my ear, speaking of coaches. My wife is just off frame listening. Uh, the other crazy, and this is the other thing about the Mutiny House too. And I think my wife told you about it too, but somebody that worked for her dad owned the actual Mutiny House in Covington.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness.
so season one, actually the finale, you can see me in season one finale where uh what is her name on the show? Cameron? Yes.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Mackenzie Davis is Cameron.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
I still say everybody by their real names, and that's the unfortunate thing. So anyway, Mackenzie and I are standing in the you can see me like really prominently when she's giving the speech about like your name tag as your job title or something like that, whatever that speech is. At the end, like I think it's like right before the credits roll in season one finale. That was a real house in Covington, and that belonged to a person that worked for my, at the time, she was my girlfriend, my girlfriend's dad. So, like, randomly they were connected because, like, to the show and to the whole thing. It takes a little bit of everybody, a little bit of everything to make that happen. And it was so neat to walk in the, I think it's the first, yeah, it's the first episode of season two. And like I turned the corner thinking like, oh, we're going back to Cardiff Electric, you know. So I turned the corner to walk up the little stairs onto the deck for to go into the office of Mutiny or of Cardiff Electric. And I turned the corner and I'm like, oh my God, that house is here. Because it was like people would turn the corner and like the front porch is there, like the exterior, that the siding correct. Like it's literally that house. It's like in The Wizard of Oz when the tornado picks up the house and like moves it over and drops it. Like you would have thought that's what happened. And it was amazing how well they rebuilt Victoria's dad's employee's house from Covington, literally one to one inside the soundstage.
Wow.
Except it was a little bigger. I would say it was probably 15% larger to account for gear and things. And there was no ceiling. They just had white cloth across there so they could light it better
Yeah.
from the top. But anyway, yeah,
Wow.
it's amazing. Like when you look back, like so many things, so many random people came together to make Halt and Catch Fire happen.
It's
And
just incredible.
I feel like in a way I was almost like the hub because I was like the one connected to everybody. So it's only fitting that 9 years later that I helped you find a lot of the same people to be on
I
the show.
mean, it seems like between you and Victoria, it seems like you're consistently running into people
Oh yeah.
but I'm also hearing that of, you know, others on the show to each other. It's like it just seems like you're all constantly running into each other and it's very well connected still. I was just doing an interview today with somebody and I mentioned an earlier interview I did. She was like, oh, that person's picture is on my fridge. And I was like, what? It's like you
That's
just
cool.
can't, like you can't escape it. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well,
Let's
Victoria, my wife worked on a show. I don't know if we can say it yet, but there's a new movie coming out that's a remake of an old movie in the 80s with some people that you would not expect to be in it. Um, it's a comedy, but anyway, like she was on set standing in, and like she was like, I know this guy, and it turns out it was Glenn Brown, the camera A operator for the 2 seasons of Halt and Catch Fire that I worked on. So
Yeah,
like there, you
that's
just,
awesome.
I mean, the Atlanta film community is really tiny anyway. Like Atlanta's a big place. There's a lot of people here, but the I guess the people that make the projects, like it's a tight pool of people.
Yeah. Let's talk about some scenes that you were part of. So, first of all, I'll pull mostly things from season two,
Yeah.
because it's a lot more prominent to see what's happening on screen in those. But at the opening of season two, well, I guess it's really the second scene. We're going to get a long oneer with Donna walking through the mutiny house,
Oh, yeah.
and it's a scene that I like to ask people about because everybody has a different angle into how they experienced it.
Yeah.
And, you all had to make that space come alive. We were sort of meeting it for the first time. Yes, we had seen it towards the end of season one, but we really were seeing it alive at the beginning of season two. So what was shooting that like for you?
If I'm being honest, like the first half of the day, I was actually upset. And so you might be able to see that on my face. Like at one point I roll my eyes when Josh Hoover says something and walk away. Like that's genuinely how I felt at the time, if I'm being honest, because like I was upset that they were bringing us over from Cardiff to Mutiny. Some of us that had prominent FaceTime, in the first season, but then they still hired all these new guys to actually be the speaking roles. And so the human in me was like, who are these clowns? You know what I mean? So like I was upset about that, if I'm being perfectly honest. But like the that fades quickly because like they're cool dudes, and it was a fun time. That scene took all day, and it was a blast. Like the fact that, I mean, and that goes into what I was saying earlier. Like there was no time to be a background person, like we all had a scene to shoot, and so we all had to be where we had to be, regardless of if we spoke, regardless if we crossed right in front of the camera or in the back, like deeper back, or like if we were holding something or not. Like we all had to do what we had to do in order to be where we had to be and let other people be where they had to be, and so like, I mean, it was the closest thing to like dancing choreography that I think I'll probably ever do. I mean, because I mean that whole scene is, I forget how long it is, but I mean
It was like over 4 minutes, I want to say.
it's a big one, and so
Yeah.
and that house, like even though they had built it a little larger scale wise to accommodate some things, like it didn't accommodate much when you have that many people moving around. I mean, everybody was on top of everybody, and you'd have to like, you'd be like walking really fast while the camera's not on you and have to like shimmy next to somebody as they shimmied by to walk down the other way and like do their thing. And then all of a sudden you have to do it all over again when the camera swings back around the other way. And then if it pivots fast, like you don't need to be caught like mid shimmy, you know what I mean? Like, so it was cool, and so like any feelings I had of betrayal or whatever I thought I felt at the time, like that faded quickly because we all just had something to do.
And
Um,
those feelings serve themselves well for what you were supposed to do in the scene, because
Indeed.
Bodhi gives his very first off-color joke
Yeah.
in right to you.
And so my character, I'm like this guy, but in my
Yeah.
mind, this guy, you know.
Yeah.
So like it
And
wasn't
it
really
started a
accurate.
long tradition of people going, this guy.
Yeah, which was hilarious. Like he was the guy for that, like in my mind, there was nobody, and at casting, they know what they're doing. They're all professionals, like they knew he could do that, and he was great at it.
Yeah.
But I mean, and he did that in real life too, like when the camera wasn't rolling.
Oh my
So
gosh. Well, and talking about other people who were a perfect fit for their role, we've got Toby Huss, who he kind of goes away at the end of season one. Literally, he's off to prison, and then season two starts, and he is coming back in episode two, and
yeah,
he just magically appears at the mutiny house, and he comes in and he is pretending that he was all beat down and busted up in a prison riot, and
yeah,
um there's I would assume there's people in the room who knew him and people who didn't from
mhm,
Cardiff Electric. And we see a real mix of on-screen reactions to him. We see some people who are happy to see him, some who are not, but we also see a bunch of whispers happening in the background. So I'm curious for you what you understood about the feeling about Boz in that room.
The feeling, I think, for the cameras, I think was the same feeling with a lot of the people, like the actors, like Toby Huss is either the most amazing method actor that the world has ever seen, or he's not acting at all. Because like when the camera stops, he's still Bosworth. Like he's still that guy. You know what I mean? Like he has a way with a room, and like there's a lot of people that love that. There's a lot of people that don't, and so like it was funny to see that happen. And he's a good dude. Like he actually, the mutiny hats that you see a lot of us wearing, that was his rap gift on season 2. He shows up at what we called the unofficial season 2 rap party, which is at one of the stand-ins houses. He shows up and we're like, oh my God, Toby's here. Like nobody expected Toby to be there. Was like a lot of background people, a lot of the crew, that kind of stuff. And then Toby walks in with a box full of these hats and gives them to everybody. And so it was so cool. It's just such a good guy. But I meant to rewatch. I saw your questions that you sent over earlier. I meant to try to find that episode and see, because I remember from that episode there was a lot of eye rolling and stuff that I think that they captured while he was giving the cut of his story that didn't make the final cut. And he's just such a good improv character. Like I don't remember the story that made it to the tape, but he told some whoppers when it wasn't, like when the camera wasn't on him, like you always see, like you have to do reverses and the camera's on us and the camera's on him. So I think he got his like the actual story that was in the script out of the way first, if I remember right. And then when the camera wasn't on him, he can say whatever he wants to, because it's just there to see what we're doing. And so he embellished a fair amount and told some stuff that my mom can't hear me repeat when she's watching this podcast. And so a lot of the reactions that you see are the real reactions of the people, like, oh my God, Toby, what do you do? What is that? Where did that come from? Like those type of things. And so like he made it easy to react, I think is a good way to say that.
Yeah. Well, we've got another episode that was really fun. 10 Brought 36, which is episode 206, where it sort of becomes a heist movie halfway through. Like it's the one where you're all trying to trick Joe into thinking that changes have actually been made to your platform to accommodate benchmarks he wants to hit in order to give you a lower price on using their network. But Cameron doesn't really want to do that. So she's more than happy to go with the plan where we just fake it and try to get one over on him. And so there's a lot of, it feels very different than most of the other episodes of this show, where it does go kind of heist movie and you kind of feel like okay, we're going to do this and this and this. And then you actually get in front of him and you're trying to pull one over on him and you want to see if it works, and then it doesn't. So what did that feel different on set to you? What did that feel like?
I'm trying to remember. There was one episode, I remember Joe being involved, and I feel like, is that the episode where he thinks, or we think we got the best of him, and then we realized that he knows everything that we're doing or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right when he goes to sit down in front of you, you kind of think that he's buying it, and then he's like, okay, because you simulated, the team simulated everything so that he'd only be seeing what they wanted him to see. But then he spots that by playing chess a few different times and finding it's the same opening move over and over again. And then he starts ripping the machine apart and being like, oh, well, this is why it's melting the table. There's no fan. And he just starts pulling it all apart.
Oh, yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I don't remember a ton about that, but I remember there was one moment, I actually almost got a line that night. I almost got to speak, because I think it's that episode where we realized or this might be from the one right after that. I can't remember. It's a little fuzzy on that one. But there was this one moment where we're all around the dining room, and Carrie comes in, all like up in arms because Joe has found a way to screw us again or something, and then and Mackenzie comes in, and we're all like the coders. It's like dumping boxes out on the table, like the dining room table, and like fidgeting through stuff and just trying to, I forget what we were even looking for. What was the point of all that? But you remember the old floppy disk, like the big, like 5 1/4 floppies. I mean, those are made out of razor blades or something, like it's so sharp, like their corners, edges, all that stuff. Um, I had reached over Carrie and grabbed one of those, and when I pulled it back, it caught her across the face. And with just the human nature in me, I know like we're to be seen, not heard, like that kind of stuff as an extra. But I was like, oh my God, I'm sorry. Like I ruined the whole take because here I am unmiked and I'm like, oh God, I'm sorry. But like she's a pro, and she immediately she's like, whatever, and like just goes back in. And I don't know that we didn't use that take, honestly, that maybe they just cut out me saying what I said or whatever. But like uh that was a wild moment because I mean it was a free for all for us, like that particular scene. And then I'll never forget it because like just when you bump into somebody like at the grocery store, you're like, oh, I'm sorry, but like very rarely do you like almost do the Joker smile on a lead actress with a floppy disk, like something had to be said, and
That
so
almost never happens.
yeah, almost like, might be a few times in one's life, I don't know. But yeah, like so looking back on that era of the show, like that's what I remember because I was like, that was a defining moment for me because like I by that time I knew the plan, like I knew what we were doing, like, but all of a sudden just like the William came out, not the character, and I was like, I'm sorry, Karen. I might
a
even remember by her
reflex.
real name actually.
Yeah.
Just
Oh
because
my
like you
gosh.
don't expect to hurt someone on set, so I
Yeah.
don't
That's
think
a
I hurt
human
her.
moment. It's bound to
Yeah, yeah.
happen.
So
What do you
that I
remember
don't know that
about?
that answers your question at all, but it's still a fun behind
No,
the.
that was great. And I'm curious what you remember about the party at Mutiny, which by all count, I mean, on the show, it's a day into night party.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's actually one of my other core memories about my time on season two. Mainly because I actually was able to smoke a fake joint, which I do
Ooh.
not recommend. Um, so like that was my prop for the day. Like I was like I had to like look stoned out in the backyard. And like I think that was the day we did if I'm not mistaken, that was the same episode where August or what's his name? Lev.
Lev,
Lev
yep.
comes in from being beaten up or whatever, and like, that's the same scene or the same episode? Like they reunite.
He comes back from that. Yeah. That's the first time you all have
Yeah.
reunited with
So
him.
like at that house over in Norcross, that which was the third mutiny location, or mutiny house location. That's where all the back porch and all the backyard stuff happened, was at this whole other house. And so we were out in the yard all day long. And so I mean it was fine. It was a pleasant spring afternoon, I suppose. But as the day turned into night, my character was supposed to be more stoned and more drunk. And so like I think they had music playing, which on set they don't play music. They're just like, hey, we're gonna put music in here, so do whatever you want and hope if it lines up, it lines up. We'll try to see what happens. So we're all like doing stupid dances in the backyard, or whatever, hoping it will match the scene or whatever. And the script supervisor, her name is Amy Lacey, we were doing some turnaround or some new deal or something, like setting up a new scene. She took it upon herself to come out of Video Village, and she cornered me, and like I mean we knew who each other were, and like we had spoken a few times like at lunch or whatever, but like, and she knew my wife from The Walking Dead because she was the script supervisor there too, for a while. But like we knew each other, but she came and she like put her hands on both my arms. She's like, you were my favorite part about this whole episode. But apparently I was doing a pretty convincing drunk and high coder. So I don't know. I don't even know that it made the cut. I think you see me for like maybe 2 seconds that night. But that was one of the most fun scenes, or I guess episodes to shoot uh of the whole run of the show. Because like, I mean, it was what you think it was. Like we were sitting out in the yard all night long. I mean, I was in a lawn chair around a fire pit talking to like 4 or 5 other background coders until I mean, God, it was probably 2 in the morning by the time we finished that
Wow.
scene. And so we were just like shooting the breeze, just hanging out, like what we were doing on screen, we were doing in real life, talking about the next project or the next thing, just like obviously until the cameras rolled, and then we were just like you do, like just pretending that we're talking. But then like some of the best conversations and the best like bonding moments between all of us happened on that particular episode.
Oh, that's really nice to hear. It's the perfect time for that to happen.
Yeah, it was really fun. Like it was what it was supposed to look like.
Yeah. One other scene or sort of end of an episode that I wanted to touch on was you had shared a picture with me from behind the scenes from I guess the set where the plane was
Yeah,
for when the team gets onto the plane to go to San Francisco at the end of season 2.
yeah.
It's very rare for us to see a plane on this set if we ever see it again, which I don't think we do.
Yeah.
So what was this like?
Well, that was a cool one too, because I wasn't even supposed to be there as a coder. I about halfway through season 2, I had actually reached out to the sound mixer of the show. Her name was Shirley. And like my background is actually in audio production. I have a bachelor's degree in audio production. And I thought like, hey, this seems fun. Maybe I'll be a sound mixer on a set. And so she allowed me to shadow her and like gave me the whole like union packet or whatever to like see if I wanted to join like the sound mixers union or whatever, and be a part of all of that. And so she would bring me onto set as just a, an intern, I suppose. Um, so a lot of the scenes and episodes that I wasn't in, I still got to be a part of because I was with the sound crew. Um, which was neat. I mean, none of the coders were specifically invited. The background coders were invited unless they were going to California, which none of us were. None of the backgrounders were. Um, but I was invited to that episode or to that sequence because of Shirley. Um, but then by the time we got to that episode, I had decided, Shirley, I don't really want to do this anymore because like as it turns out, like you have to do what I was doing, which was just kind of a little bit of everything. And then the next logical step is the audio utility, which is the guy that like mics up everybody. And then the next step is boom operator. They're like, if you really get good at all this, you can be the boom operator. And I knew for a fact I didn't want to do that. So I was like, Shirley, I think I'm out. Like, I don't think I want to do this. Because like that is what I'm trained in. I'm trained in all that, but like I actually have an old rib injury that I can't like if I hold the boom too much, like it jacks up everything. So like I was like, yeah, I'm out for this, but I'll still come hang out. And she's like, yeah, definitely come out and hang out. It's gonna be fun. As it turns out, that day, that location is called it's the OFS building, is what we call it. It's an old shut down like factory of some kind. Just up the street from where the actual soundstage was. But that's the same day of the airplane was the day that we shot Boz coming down the stairs, and I think he was talking to his son or something, like the big office grandeur thing that he was in or whatever. Like that was at that location. And then on the front porch of that location is actually where we shot the season 2 group photo, like to end out the year. It was like the last day of shooting and stuff. It was like the last day of school, honestly, is what it felt like for everybody. Um, and it was also a Friday of all things. So like on set, we do what's called $5 Fridays. And it's like a lottery, and so you get tickets and every ticket is $5. And like people feel really generous toward the end, like the actors will put in like, I'll put in $5,000 or whatever, give me those tickets. And so the pot of money at the end of the night, they draw the ticket. It's like a raffle. Uh, and the pot's usually every Friday is like $1,000 or something, like just small. But this particular night, it was like 35,000 or something. It was ridiculous. And I was like, well, I wasn't needed at all. And my wife was there for the girls on the airplane. So we got to hang out. But then like she was wrapped, the girls were wrapped, and she went home and I was like, well, I'm staying here to win this money. So I was actually stayed until they drew the tickets because you also have to be present to win or whatever. And so like I was there the whole time. So because of being there with Shirley or with the sound crew and everything, I was able to be in the season 2 group photo on the front porch of the OFS building. Um, None of this is about the airplane. I just realized that.
No, but it's all so you're providing
Oh.
a lot of context for a lot of things, because I froze the frame in the plane because I knew that I had seen this picture of you. I was like, where is the back of William's head? But you were everywhere but there.
Yeah, I was not in the plane literally at all.
That's great.
So, but yeah, I mean, obviously it looks like an airplane on the inside. On the outside, it's a rolling set, like
Yeah.
they have those actually now they have them all over Atlanta. There's lots of airplane scenes, but we had to go to this particular location because it was the only place they had an airplane. I don't think I ever even went on the airplane because I wasn't supposed to, like I was just a shadow there that night or whatever, just kind of looking around. But I mean, that was where you got to see the picture I sent you of me and my wife. Like, and you see that I'm this 6'4" giant. She's 4'10", so she's standing on like the little, like the guardrail that makes the forklifts not run off into something that's important. So she's standing in there on that, and like we're the same height and stuff. So it was a fun moment, that one, because it truly was like the last day of school, like kind of anything goes, anybody can do anything. And I mean, and that was the cool thing about one of the cool things about season 2 of Halt and Catch Fire is I was by all measures a background actor. Except twice they wanted me to read for a line that they wound up rewriting the moment both times. So I almost got a line. But the thing you should know about the movie business is it's really hard on background actors. Like, we're treated like cattle, like that's the rise of the AI stuff. Like they don't even want background people there most of the time because it's just extra people you have to feed, like we're what makes the scene possible because we're what gives it the real life element, you know what I mean? But like they'd rather not deal with us most sets. But Halt and Catch Fire was this like amazing moment where like those of us that were coders in the Mutiny House, we were I mean, I was a cast member. The only difference was the paycheck, and I didn't have a trailer, but like all the directors knew us by name. Everybody knew who we were. The Chris's knew us by name. In fact, it was really neat. Like, one of the other coders found out where we were shooting the airplane day, and he crashed the set also. You know what I mean? Like, I at least was invited. But like he just shows up, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter because that speaks to the family element of what Halt and Catch Fire was by the end of season 2. Is like, I forget if it was which of the Chris's it was, but they were talking to the other coder and they were like, "Man, it's so cool that you and William were able to come and be a part of this today." And like it was just cool. And like looking back, like that means a lot that like the people that were in charge of everything still knew who you were. And that they knew that you mattered, on the set. And it was really like that was a really special time. Like looking back on Halt and Catch Fire, like that particular day that I wasn't even supposed to be at was one of my favorite days. So it was.
Any other favorite moments that you want to shout out that we haven't addressed? Or was that the big finish and I shouldn't even have asked that?
I was on a roll and now I don't know. No, I mean, it was most of Halt and Catch Fire to me, like the magical stuff was when we weren't even on the set. Like it was cool to get to know everybody. It was almost like I grew up playing in bands and stuff, and like it almost had this like weird like summer camp band vibe, like if you're just part of a club, you know what I mean? And like, so no matter what you were doing, like we all did just hang out together. And like, I think that's why some of us are still so close now is because like for instance, like when choosing bandmates, it like people have to be good at the craft. Like you have to be good at music. There's no question about that. But when you're choosing people to be in a band with you, you choose people that you want to ride in a van with for 12 hours. You know what I mean? And not want to kill them at the end. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of people that are great that you don't want to be around. And I think that was one of the coolest parts about especially season 2 of Halt was the fact that like we all just kind of liked each other, whether we were background or principal or like crew or the writers or anybody. Like it was just like everybody enjoyed being there. And so I mean, to me, that's what made it special, not any particular scene or any particular script or whatever. Because I mean, at the end of the day, a script is a script, a show is a show, but like the people is what makes it, you know. And so like all like the Cinco de Mayo party we had at the Mexican restaurant around the corner, you know, like those type of things. Like when I think about Halt and Catch Fire, I remember those things more than any specific episode.
Since it was about the people for you, you've been able to drop a bunch of names as you've gone through today, but is there anybody else that I know this is a horribly unfair question, but is there anybody else whose name you want to drop here? Make sure we've heard their name, know like that you had a good experience working with them.
I wish I would have gotten to know Scoot and Carrie better. They always seemed really awesome. I really only interacted with both of them maybe 4 times in the whole run of season 1 and 2. My wife knew them a lot because she was standing in for their fake kids. But every interaction I had with both of those people were amazing. Just super fun, down to earth, real, awesome people. Scoot brought his dogs to set. Like he would just like tie him up to the truck, like in the shade, you know, like, you know, and go hang out with him between stuff. And like, I'm a dog person, like all the way. So like that meant a lot to me. I think, have you had a chance to talk to Cooper Andrews?
Not yet.
Oh man, I should put you in contact with him. We haven't kept up a lot. I mean, he lives right down the street from us. He and his wife. I actually met his wife at the season 2 wrap party, and we've all been connected on the internet, you know, for the last 9 years or whatever. But like, I've seen Cooper a couple of times. My wife has seen him on The Walking Dead a lot because I mean, his life blew up when he quit Halt or when he left Halt and went over to The Walking Dead. I mean, the whole world knows who he is now because of that. But like, he's just a real dude. He's real cool. And I was actually working on a soundstage as a lighting guy for some corporate thing. And I had a moment to go sit outside. Like when you do a studio corporate thing, you light the thing and then get out of the way. And then like you go sit in a chair for the next 4 or 5 hours while they're shooting the thing. And then you go break it down and go home. So I had a lot of free time at this one particular, like kind of weird off the beaten path soundstage, like in a random part of town. And I had been sitting there for like, you know, probably 2 hours. And I was like, well, I'm going to go walk around and do something. I walked around the corner. I was wearing my mutiny hat and I walked into a pre-production meeting unbeknownst to me. Like I walked up on this group of people and Cooper was one of the people. And he stops the meeting. He's like, wait, come here. And he like, you know, he's 6 foot something, like massive guy or whatever. Like I feel like a dwarf in comparison to him. And I'm a big guy too. But he comes and he like hugs me. He's like, bro, what's up, man? He's like, I like your hat or whatever. And, you know, like, cool. It's just a cool guy. And then I was invited about this time last year. We went to an improv, like stand-up show that he was a part of. And a guy I was working with on set was like, hey, he's like, do you know The Walking Dead? I was like, of course. And he was like, do you know the guy Jerry? And I was like, Cooper? He's like, yeah, Cooper from The Walking Dead's going to be at our show. I was like, dude, he's a friend. And so like, we went and we talked to them for like hours and hours and hours that night too. And rumor has it they have a dog the size of ours that's just a long-haired Chihuahua. He wants us to have them play together. One of these days we're going to take him up on that. But yeah, I think a lot of him. He's a real good dude. I mean, and a lot of other like Mutiny and Cardiff alumni, I guess, have gone on to do some cool things. Like a guy from season 1, his name is Brett Brooks. We've maintained a pretty decent friendship. He's actually a graphic novel artist and has several he's actually he's done a lot of writing and acting in his own like indie shorts and features and stuff too. But he's known for his graphic novels and he does a lot of the conventions and stuff doing that. And so yeah, I mean, there's just it's just neat. And then by and large, like we have, I mean, we still know kind of everyone, we're all connected through the internet, Facebook, Instagram, all those things. So I mean, we're always interacting with each other, I mean, whether we're close, it's almost like you're close friends from high school or something, you know what I mean? Like we all did this one thing because we were forced together, and then like we forged these little bonds in one way or another that we may not see each other for 5 years, but when we see each other, we're like, oh man, and we're back to where we were, and then we go on about our life again. You know what I mean? And it was a fun timestamp in all of our lives that we all look back fondly with. Um, oh, there was a thing to go down the path of the family thing. Um, I mentioned Devin, my costumer, earlier on in our talk, season one. Uh, I don't, if she came back to season two, I never saw her, but we had a girl named Ashley. That was like the main costumer for all of the like the 7 or 8 background coders. And she was so cool, man. She was like one of the first people I saw every day when I got there. And like she kind of set the tone for the day. You know what I mean? Like when you see Ashley's happy, like we're all gonna be happy. Like it's a good day. It may be 6 in the morning. I may have been up since 4 to get here, but like I'm dragging, but if Ashley's happy, I'm happy. You know what I mean? And so like the coders had this Facebook Messenger group. And I think it was Coders with a Z or something. It was so dumb. But like and that's how we actually knew what was going on. We like if any of us had like if we overheard something, we're like, hey, did you know? So like we're all keeping each other like, one of us had an ear to the ground all the time on what was
Yeah.
happening. But the coder group had gone dark after season 2 wrapped, and about a year and some change later, it was summer of 2016. A guy named Zach, he was one of the coders. Zach was like, "Hey guys, you remember Ashley? She was killed in a car accident." And I was like, "Oh my God!" It was just gut wrenching. Um, but I say all of that to say, like, we figured out where the funeral was and everything, and like Halt and Catch Fire people showed up like you wouldn't believe. It was amazing because like you would the background costume person, like how many people is that person gonna touch? You know what I mean? But like it speaks to who she was. That like it was almost like a wedding, like you have the bride side, you have the groom side. Like at this particular church was a massive church in Jonesboro. um, there was like all the church people that knew her, and then the whole other side was film industry people. And then out of the film industry people, probably 10 rows, maybe 5 to 10 rows were Halt and Catch Fire people.
Oh, wow.
And there was this really special moment that happened after the funeral was over. They dismissed everybody, everybody's walking out and stuff. Somebody made an announcement like, anybody that's worked with Ashley, come down to the front. And so, like, Sam, who you've interviewed, was there. Josh Hoover was there. Um, one of the background coders that went on to be a stunt guy, his name is Kirk. He was there. Uh, Me, obviously. I mean, there was a lot of us. Those are the ones I can remember at the moment. But it was probably 25 people that walked to the front of the stage, and we were all obviously upset, but like still trying to like honor the moment and stuff while catching up with each other because we hadn't seen each other in a year and a half or so, or a year and a couple of months. But they had a videographer there, and they sat us all down on the front row and said, "We want you guys to like." About the film industry, our loved ones don't know what we do. You know what I mean? We go to work for 12 hours, and then at the end of the day, they see a 45-minute TV show like a year from then. You know what I mean? So like nobody really understands. Like in their case, like Ashley's mom and dad knew that Ashley worked in the movies or on TV shows, but didn't know. And they knew she was a costumer or whatever, but they didn't know what she did and the impact that she had or whatever. So the videographer for the funeral decided like, well, let's tell them, so they sat us all down on the front steps of the church or whatever. And they were like, talk to Ashley, tell her what she means to you and that kind of stuff. And so it was amazing to hear from everybody. I mean, there was like camera people there. There was like everybody, all the crew positions, all the cast positions were there for Ashley, and they all got to tell their take on who she was as a person. Which was a really cool thing. And like, to me, that's what I'm talking about with Halt and Catch Fire. Like, those are the humanity behind the show means more than the show to me. So
You're making me tear up, and that's not even my memory.
I know, I'm doing
it's
it
your
too.
memory.
Yeah.
What's happening? Oh my gosh, that's
but
so
yeah,
beautiful.
that is, to me, that is Halt and Catch Fire. Like, when you ask me about Halt and Catch Fire, like, I remember the people of Halt and Catch Fire way more than I remember the show. I mean, the show was fine, you know, but at the end of the day, it was a show. You know, it was just it was work. One more thing that we all do that we're gonna look back on and say that we did it. You know, like, it was special in the moment for what it is, but like, to me, it was the people that made it for
Yeah.
me.
Absolutely incredible. And just so it's been said, I know in Victoria's interview, she talked a lot about your ongoing connection to Morgan Hinkleman and Alana Kavanaugh. And I mean, the list goes on of the family
Sure.
that you built through that show. Are you up to anything now that you can share? I know that you're on to other types of gigs as well here. So what can you talk about of what you've done since Halt and Catch Fire or recently?
So I work a lot behind the camera now, in lighting and sound, actually for corporate stuff. Corporate, and like, I was a sound mixer on a reality show, for like a gun channel on YouTube that decided to make their own network and like make like, it was like a spinoff of The Office, but it was like The Office for like this gun merchandise place. It's cooler than it sounds. But I've done a lot of commercials. I was an actor recently on a trucking company commercial. I played a diesel mechanic, so that's fun. Um, Other than that, I mean, I've got some friends that are into writing some stuff lately, and so I'm helping spitball some ideas for writing both series and a couple of features. Um, in the last year and a half, I've done 400 car commercials as a voiceover artist, um, which is a fun story in its own right. I have an on camera acting agent, but she's not a voiceover rep. BMG, the global modeling agency, decided they wanted to be voiceover people as well. So they put an office in Atlanta and was like, hey, they reached out to all the on-camera people, agents, and said, hey, send us your best people that do voice work. And that's actually what I was trained in college. Was like, I tell people all the time, I have an audio paleontology degree, because I was in college between 2004 and 2008, and the audio production program at the time was radio studio production. And my professors were old school, like 70s and 80s era radio personalities. And so they were teaching us based on what they did at the time, 25, 35 years ago, you know, in the 70s and 80s. And at that particular moment in history, 2004 to 2008, like in the early 2000s, the whole world was going digital. Radio was dying. Like, radio is owned by like 4 companies now. And like, that's why like almost every station plays the same music over and over again. You know, like, there is no like radio person anymore. But like, I have all this training and like how to be a radio DJ in 1975, you know, for from my college. And so a lot of that at the time was like the radio personalities doing like the commercial reads and doing like stupid voices and like all this stuff. So like, I kind of got a tangential voice acting degree as well based on that. Um, and so like, that was always something I wanted to do. That was my favorite part of college, was getting to do stupid like radio voices and stuff. But because most of the things were like actual radio, like disc jockey voice things, like my voice lends itself to the big bombastic like radio voice anyway. So like, because of the training and because of the way my voice naturally is, anytime I would read for a thing with BMG, back to that, like, I signed with BMG and was repped by them for 2 years as a voice actor. And I would be in front of like commercials for like the dogs on Chewy commercials and like things like that. And they were like, if you ever got any feedback from anybody, which is rare, if you ever got any feedback, they would be like, I mean, we just kind of want it to sound like a real person talking. And I'm like, I'm a real person talking. Like that's what I was doing. You know what I mean? But like a couple of the instances of feedback, people would say, you just kind of sound like you're doing car commercials. Like it was a bad thing. And I was like, I mean, I guess that's what I sound like. I don't know what to tell you. And so like as my time was coming to an end, my 2-year contract with them, it was up for renewal or for cancellation. I got a call from this person and they were like, hey, my day job, he was an actor and writer. And he was like, my day job is editing car commercials. And our voiceover person just quit. I asked around for somebody that could do car commercial voiceovers, and your name came up a few times. Like, can you do our commercials? And I was like, yeah, yeah, I can. And that was February of last year. And I've done uh I have 2 more to do after we hang up with this actually. And I think it's like 390 something, like 392 or something since last February. So
Wow.
so that's fun. I'm finally the car commercial guy, you know. So I've been able to do car commercials for every brand that exists all over the country and into Canada. So good times.
So
So like
everybody listening, if you've heard a car commercial recently, you
yeah,
might have
yeah.
heard William.
So yeah, and it's fun having the network that we have because I mean a lot of actors come in from like Canada and stuff, and you know Canada is a predominantly French country, so like and they speak a lot of French, and so because of that, like city pronunciations are like a lot weirder than you would think and stuff. So like I'm able to like through our network of people between me and my wife, you know, like I can reach out to some Canadians and be like, hey, the name of this town is what? Like, and so they'll send me like voice notes, like I would say it like this, you know. And so it's fun to have people in position that you can call on, you know, like when you need things like that.
This is amazing. What a
Yeah,
journey you've had.
it's fun. And the one of the main things I'm working on at the moment, I'm trying to build it. And this is an exclusive thing. I've never spoken this publicly before. So we're finally getting to that point where I can talk about it. I've talked a lot to like some industry people and people like other filmmakers and stuff. But like I mentioned, the conversations that we all have offset, you know, like everybody's working on something. Everybody's got a new thing. They're a new short film that they're doing, a new film festival they're entering, some old project into or whatever. Um, I actually have started a streaming service that is for independent filmmakers that have like finished the festival route, you know, like the festival circuit, like once they've done their last festival, like because all these people that work on set that are going somewhere, they all write and make their own projects that go into film festivals, and a lot of people win. You know, like a lot of people have like award-winning short films that just go nowhere. Like when they're done with the festival circuit, they wind up with a couple of plaques that look cool. Like I have one buried behind my slate back here for editing that I won on a short film I made in college. But like it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't do anything. You know, so like I actually created a platform called New Deal Television or NDTV for short. It's newdealtelevision.com is how you can get there. But it's a platform that will help give a home for all these short film, indie shorts, indie features, documentaries, anything people are working on that once they, even if they win awards, don't win awards, whatever, when they're done with the festival circuit, I don't want them just to wind up on a hard drive, you know, somewhere that nobody ever sees again. Or that was that cool thing I did one time 5 years ago or whatever. Like I've created a monetizable platform where people can come and actually put their projects and actually make money off of them. And hopefully, you know, in the way of like, you know, the old saying is rising tides lift all the boats, you know, like if somebody comes for my short film and they happen to see yours, they wouldn't have seen yours without coming there to see mine. So like it's just another version of a networking opportunity that happens to be a way that indie filmmakers can also hope to start making a living off of their work that they were otherwise doing for free.
What
Or
an incredible project. If we want to, I know I thank you for the exclusive.
Sure.
If we want to sort of follow the progress of this, where should we just Google the name of it, and when it comes up, or is there should we follow you somewhere?
Yeah, you can go to newdealtelevision.com. And so actually when I was naming it, like I was thinking about this last year in 2023 and all the strike, the writer's strike, the SAG strike, all that stuff. And there's talks of strikes with the transpo team and all sorts of stuff now. Like everybody kept looking for the New Deal. You know, the people, the lawyers would get together and like, okay, here's what we're offering this time. And then everybody would be like, that's not good enough, you know, and like every like 3 or 4 weeks, there'd be like oh, here's the new deal. Here's the new deal. Here's the new deal. And then it was never the right deal. And then I always go back and I'm like, you're still seeing the ripple effect of that in cinema now, because there's like hardly anything worth watching in the movie theater now because we lost 10 months worth of production. But in the meantime, I mean, there were independent filmmakers making stuff, you know, and I do love me a good pun, you know, so New Deal is actually what we call, like, if we're moving on to a new scene, like we've shot all the coverage we want to shoot for this scene, we're moving on to the next scene. You hear everybody on the walkies and all around set, everybody's like, new deal, new deal, new deal. Like we're creating a new deal. And so that language kept coming up with the strikes and the new deals that people were trying to make. And I'm like, why don't we make our own new deal? You know, and I've been developing some content marketing skills and things like that for like online education products. And I was like, why don't I merge that business and all the skill sets for that business, all the monetization structures for that business into an indie filmmaker platform? And it seems like a no-brainer, but nobody's thought of it that I know of, you know? And so like I made my own new deal for my friends and hopefully a whole lot of future new friends. But there's a TikTok and an Instagram for it, and Facebook. I'll have to maybe send those to you. I think it's Watch
Yeah.
TV. I set up the pun and never said it, but like New Deal Television, if you shorten it to NDTV, obviously that's a pun for independent TV also. So
Oh, this
a
is
couple of different
awesome.
ways why that name worked. So I'm so excited about that. Like the website is already live. The actual like payment gateway is already live. There's actually, as of right now, this is why it's so exclusive, is because it's not fully, I mean, it is ready to launch, but it's not fully decked out with everybody's stuff. We're still trying to get all the paperwork situated to get some new projects on there. There's a cooking show that I made for a friend of mine. That's the only project on there at the moment. But I'm putting a lot of my old student films from college, like 20 years ago, you know, on there, which is going to be a blast, you know, like those kind of things. Because if nothing else, technology's changed and a lot of it looks ridiculous. But I think people are going to love that. You know, like this is what a no budget project looked like in 2006. You know what I mean?
Yeah, before when we're done recording, remind me to mention one of your fellow Halt castmates who has a short that might be
Oh,
something you might
fun.
look at for this.
That sounds
Very fresh in my mind, that conversation. So
yeah,
this is
yeah.
really cool timing. But
Absolutely.
yeah, what a cool project, and what a fun way for people to discover shorts or other projects that made it to the festival but didn't get anywhere after that. So
Or
I
even the
love
ones that
that.
did. That's the crazy part, is like people have stacks on stacks of awards that they've won at these things, and then they just still wind up on a hard drive somewhere or for
Mm.
free on YouTube, and still nobody cares about it. But like the idea for this is it to land on my platform under a payment gateway, you know, and then we make content like this. Like we're actually starting I haven't named it yet, but like an indie TV podcast where I interview like cast members of every project that lands on the platform and stuff
Wow.
to draw attention to their project on this platform. You know,
What a
trying
great
to pay
idea.
it forward, you know.
Yeah. And hopefully everybody listening to this will check that out and find some new talented people out there who are producing great things.
Hopefully, I mean that is one of the main hopeful byproducts of it, is that happens
Yeah.
too.
Well, thank you so much. I've taken up so much of your time, but what this did not disappoint. I knew we would get so many good stories, and oh my gosh, what that spirit of family that you and Victoria both have talked about is so clear in everything that you've shared. So thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. It's been my honor. I'm so glad we finally got it worked out.
I know. And to everybody who's listening to this and watching this, thank you for watching, and go out there and watch Halt and Catch Fire, everybody. Bye.